The air inside the Detroit Arsenal tank plant is a physical weight. It is 1943, and the sound is a constant grinding roar, a mechanical ocean of hydraulic presses, the shriek of industrial lathes, and the percussive, deafening stutter of thousands of rivet guns. The atmosphere is thick with the metallic tang of ozone from welders, the slick, heavy smell of cutting oil, and the fine, gritty dust of raw steel. This is the arsenal of democracy, a 2-mile-long cathedral of mass production churning out the M4 Sherman tank. Every 8 hours the shift changes, but the noise never stops. Among the welders and the foremen, Daniel is almost invisible. He is 17, thin, with grease permanently embedded in the lines of his hands. His normal is the starboard assembly line. Station 14, sponson rack installation. His world is reduced to a single repetitive task, fastening the prefabricated steel racks into the hull. These racks will hold the 75mm ammunition. He works with a dull, rhythmic efficiency, his movements automatic. Overhead, massive gantry cranes move olive-drab hulls down the line, behemoths of steel waiting for guts. The pressure is immense. Quotas are not suggestions, they are demands. A painted sign on a girder reads, "Victory waits on your hands." Beside it, a smaller, newer memo, "Quality control is victory control." Daniel barely notices them. He just needs to get the racks fitted. He picks up the next steel bracket, positions it against the hull's inner wall, and reaches for his wrench. The air is cold, but the steel is always warm from the welding nearby. He doesn't know it, but he is standing at the precise intersection of a fatal design flaw and the solution that will save thousands. His focus narrows to the task at hand, hull 3045, just like the 20 before it today. He aligns the ammunition rack bracket, a simple piece of stamped steel, against the pre-drilled holes in the tank's sponson. The area over the track. He tries to thread the bolt. It won't catch. He pushes the heavy rack. It doesn't move. He squints in the dim factory light. The holes are misaligned. It's a tiny discrepancy, barely 3/32 of an inch, but in a machine of this precision it is a canyon. He hears his foreman, Riggs, yelling 2 stations down, "Keep 'em moving! Don't let that line stop!" Daniel feels a spike of frustration. He can't stop the line. A stop means an investigation, paperwork, and the furious glare of the shift supervisor. He makes a decision. He reaches into his canvas pouch, past the standard 2, 5-inch bolts, and pulls out a 25-inch one. A wrong bolt. It's shorter. He thinks if he angles it, it will just catch the first few threads of the hull nut, bypassing the misalignment. He just needs it to look secure. He tries to force it. The bolt slips from his oily fingers, clattering with a sharp tink, tink, tink into the dark belly of the hull. He curses quietly. Riggs hears the silence. The rhythmic thud of Daniel's work has stopped. "What is it, kid?" The line halts. In the sudden, relative quiet, the failure seems to amplify. An inspector is called, a man in a clean shirt. He looks at the misaligned bracket, then at the shorter bolt Daniel is still clutching. This is not a simple mistake. This is a production halt. And what they don't know, what Daniel cannot possibly comprehend, is that this one misaligned bracket and the wrong bolt he tried to use has just exposed a flaw that is getting American crews killed by the hundreds, thousands of miles away. The problem is not the bolt. The problem is the M4 Sherman. In the field, it is earning a reputation. The British, who receive it via Lend-Lease, call it the Ronson, after the popular cigarette lighter. Its unofficial slogan, "Lights first time, every time." German tank crews, beneficiaries of this flaw, call it the Tommy cooker. The source of this grim nomenclature is a catastrophic design decision. The U.S. Ordnance Department, in a rush to field a medium tank, has prioritized speed and mechanical reliability. But in doing so, they have stored the main gun's ammunition, dozens of 2-foot-long 75mm shells, in the sponsons. These racks, the very ones Daniel is fitting, are protected by only 5 inches, 38mm, of vertical steel armor. This armor is tragically insufficient against the high-velocity 75mm KWK 40 guns of the German Panzer IV and the terrifying 88mm KWK 36 of the Tiger. An after-action report from the 66th Armored Regiment, fighting in Sicily, makes for chilling reading. Tank B-12 C Company struck starboard sponson by 7, 5 cm APC round, immediate catastrophic ignition, hull detonated in approximately 10 seconds, no survivors. The data becomes undeniable. By late 1943, statistical analysis compiled by the 2nd Armored Division confirms a horrifying reality. Upon a penetrating hit to the hull or turret, the M4 Sherman has an 80% chance of a catastrophic fire. The propellant used in the shells, when struck by shrapnel or the penetrating round itself, does not merely burn, it explodes, creating a superheated jet of gas that incinerates the crew. The tank becomes a pressurized oven. The official consensus from the War Office is grim but pragmatic. This is an acceptable loss. Production must continue. Brewed up. The phrase is cold, clinical, but for the crews it is a visceral daily terror. It is the acrid smell of burning paint and cordite. It is the sound of a jammed hatch, the desperate muffled screams. It is the sight of a friendly tank hit 300 yards away, suddenly vanishing in a blossom of orange-black fire, its turret blown clean off, tumbling through the air. The human cost is staggering. Tankers. Young men from Ohio and Texas begin developing their own desperate, unauthorized field modifications. They refuse to load the sponson racks, effectively cutting their ammunition load in half, choosing to fight undersupplied rather than ride a bomb. They stack sandbags against their hulls, a futile gesture against a high-velocity shell, but one that provides a sliver of psychological comfort. Morale in the armored divisions is cracking. The letters home are censored, but the terror leaks through. The Krauts aim for the White Star, one tanker writes. We paint it over with mud, but they know where to hit us. They know we burn. The experts at the Ordnance Department see the reports, but the industrial inertia is a force of nature. To change the design now would mean retooling every factory, Detroit, Fisher, pressed steel car. It would mean stopping. And in the middle of a global war, stopping is impossible. Experts agreed. The flaw was terrible, but it couldn't be fixed. The man called to the halted production line at Station 14 is not a high-level executive. He is Elias Thorne, a 42-year-old senior engineer on loan from the automotive industry. He is a quiet, meticulous man who designed fluid transmissions for trucks in Toledo before the war. He is not a weapons designer, he is a problem solver. He wears a stained tie and carries a notebook and a slide rule. He's unassuming, but he is haunted. Unlike the production managers who see only quotas, Thorne is the man who reads the after-action reports from Sicily and Italy. He correlates the statistical tables of crew fatalities with the blueprints he signs off on every day. Thorne's context is not just engineering, it is personal. His own son is a loader in the 3rd Infantry Division's tank battalion, currently fighting its way up the rocky spine of Italy. When Elias Thorne reads, "Immediate catastrophic ignition. No survivors," he does not see data, he sees his son. This quiet internal dread shapes his thinking. He is a man who understands that a 332-inch misalignment on an assembly line is not just a production snag. It is a symptom of a deeper sickness in the design. He arrives at Hull 3045 long after Daniel has been reassigned and the foreman has moved on. He just stands there, looking at the empty sponson, the misaligned bracket, and the thin 1/5-inch plate of steel that separates American soldiers from German shells. Elias stands in the echoing hull for a long time. The wrong bolt incident is a momentary distraction, but the problem, the misaligned bracket, holds his attention. He runs his fingers over the cold steel. He sees the chalk outlines where the 75mm rounds will be stacked right up against the hull. He thinks of the reports. Brewed up in 12 seconds. He returns to his small glass-walled office, the noise of the factory, a dull roar beyond the glass. He pulls the official M4A3 blueprints. He looks at the cross-section, sponson, armor, crew. He sees it, not as an engineer, but as a killer. The design is inviting disaster. The idea that forms is not a flash of brilliance. It is a slow, cold, logical realization. It's not the bracket, he thinks. It's the location. The ammunition cannot be there. It must move. But where? The turret is full. The floor. He sketches. He draws the hull floor, the torsion bar suspension underneath. There is space. He draws new racks low on the hull bottom. This moves the center of gravity, but it's safer. It's below the main line of fire. But what if a round does get through? Or a mine from below? How to stop the fire? He remembers his old work. Transmissions, radiators, fluid dynamics. Water, he mutters. We surround them in water. He sketches frantically. Not just water. It would freeze in winter. A water-glycol mixture, the same as in a Jeep's radiator. He draws steel jackets around the new floor-mounted ammunition bins, a secondary container filled with liquid. If a shell fragment penetrates, it will hit the fluid first. The fluid will absorb the energy. It will extinguish the spark. It will snuff the ignition. He presents the sketch, Ammunition Stowage Modification, wet, to his production supervisor. The man looks at it for 10 seconds. Water inside the tank? Thorne, are you insane? Do you know the weight, the plumbing, the retooling? The generals want more tanks, not rolling bathtubs. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Elias is ordered to drop it. Focus on the line, his boss tells him. Meet the quota. But Thorne cannot. He sees the Ronson reports. He sees his son's face. He uses his own meager authority to requisition a damaged M4 hull, one retired to the factory's boneyard for scrap. He calls a friend, a senior technician at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, a man named Mac, who owes him a favor. He tells Mac he is testing a new ballast system. It is a lie. He is building his prototype in secret. After hours, they work under the cold, buzzing lights of a testing bay at Aberdeen. The setting is stark, concrete walls, scarred by 1,000 previous tests. The air smells of gunpowder and damp earth. Elias and Mac weld the new racks themselves, crude boxes of 1-inch steel plate. They fabricate the jackets, thin steel bladders that fit around the bins. They fill them by hand with buckets of the 50-50 water glycol mix. The sloshing sound is strange, out of place inside the steel hull. They load the racks with 75mm propellant casings. Mac, a grizzled veteran of 100 ordnance tests, eyes the contraption. "It's a bomb in a bathtub, Elias," he says, chewing on a dead cigar. "You're sure about this?" Elias nods. "Get the gun ready." They stage the test in 2 parts. First, the control. They use a standard M4, replicating the field conditions perfectly. A dry sponson rack, fully loaded, they retreat to the safety of the observation bunker. Mac gets on the radio to the gun crew, manning a captured German 75mm PaK-40 anti-tank gun 500 yards away. Control test. Fire when ready. The crack of the PaK-40 echoes across the range. The high-velocity shell hits the M4's sponson. The result is instantaneous and horrifying. A white-hot flash, a percussive whoomph that rattles the bunker's thick glass. The M4's turret is blown 30 feet into the air, spinning. A column of oily black smoke climbs into the sky. The tank is a raging inferno. It is exactly what the field reports described. They wait an hour for the wreck to cool. Now the second test. They wheel Elias's modified hull into place. The new wet stowage is loaded. The air is thick with anticipation. "Test B," Max says into the radio. "Fire." The German gun cracks again. The shell finds its mark, penetrating the 1. 5-inch side armor precisely where the new ammo bin is. A loud clang reverberates, a puff of white. Steam. Vents from the hole. But that's it. No fire, no secondary explosion, no brew up. Elias and Max stare, speechless. They emerge from the bunker, walking slowly toward the scarred hull. They peer inside. The interior is a mess of spalled metal and sweet-smelling vapor. The water glycol mixture has been flash vaporized, but it has done its job. The propellant casings are soaked, charred, but intact. Mac lets out a long, slow whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. If stories like this fascinate you, stay with us. The breakthrough was one thing. Convincing the entire U.S. Army to change its most important weapon in the middle of the war was another. The next chapter of this wartime innovation might surprise you. Elias Thorne's report, Aberdeen Test 44B, ammunition stowage modification, lands on a desk at the Ordnance Department in Washington, D.C. It is accompanied by 2 photographs. Photo A, the control tank, a blackened, melted heap of slag. Photo B, the test hull, scarred and smoking, but recognizably still a tank. The report is met with institutional hostility. A hastily assembled panel of colonels and production managers convenes. Elias, the lone civilian engineer, stands before them. "Mr. Thorne," begins a colonel, his voice dripping with skepticism, "your proposal suggests adding nearly 200 pounds of liquid to the M4. It requires a complete retooling of the whole floor and reduces the standard ammunition load from 97 rounds to 90. Is that correct?" Elias nods. "Yes, sir. But it reduces the fire rate from 80% to—" The colonel cuts him off. "We are in a war of logistics and speed. You are adding weight, complexity, and slowing down our factories. Your fix compromises the entire chassis. The M4 is a proven design." Elias feels a surge of anger, but he keeps his voice steady. He is not a soldier, but he will fight this battle. "Colonel, with respect, the M4 is not a proven design. It is a proven flaw. We are losing more crews to fire than to the initial penetration. This isn't about speed, it's about survivability. This water, it gives them a chance. It gives them the seconds they need to bail out. The data is clear. The dry tank explodes. The wet tank doesn't." He pauses, holding their gaze. "We are not just building machines. We are building armor for men. We are sending them to war in tinderboxes. This stops it. The data is in that report. It works. The sheer, undeniable evidence of the photographs and the test data is too powerful to ignore. The decision is made with reluctant approval in February 1944. The change is to be implemented immediately. The factories at Detroit, Fisher and Ford are ordered to halt the M4A3 line. The floor plans are changed. New welding stations are added. The wet stowage modification, officially designated M4A375W, begins rolling off the assembly lines by late spring. The W was a simple letter, but it meant survival. The real test, however, would not be at Aberdeen. It would be in the bloody hedgerows of Normandy. June 1944. The 3rd Armoured Division, Spearhead, is bogged down in the dense bocage country. The fighting is intimate and brutal, a series of tank-on-tank ambushes from 100 yards. A veteran sergeant, commanding an M4A375W, finds himself in a duel with a hidden German tank. A high-velocity round slams into his tank, a deafening, bone-jarring impact. The sergeant instinctively screams, "Bail out! Bail out!" He smells steam. Not the acrid, choking smell of cordite and burning oil, but a hot, sweet vapor. The tank is filled with it. The crew tumbles out of the hatches, diving into the ditch. They look back, expecting the inevitable explosion. The tank is smoking. It is ruined. But it is not burning. They are all alive. The hit is low on the hull, right where the new ammunition bins are. An after-action report from the 32nd Armoured Regiment filed a week later reads, "Unit C7, sustained penetrating hit from Destin 7, 5 centimeters Pak 40 to hull ammunition stowage. No fire resulted. Crew evacuated vehicle safely. Recommend recovery." The reports multiply. The data pours in. By late 1944, a comprehensive U.S. Army study confirms the change. The wet stowage tanks have a catastrophic fire rate of just 15%, down from 80%. The Ronson nickname begins to fade. The Tommy Cooker is no more. The wet stowage modification is arguably the most important survivability upgrade the Sherman ever received. It was not a bigger gun or thicker armor. It was not a glamorous, headline-grabbing innovation. It was a humble, practical, and brilliant piece of engineering, born from a logistical nightmare and a single engineer's refusal to accept the impossible. It was plumbing, it was water, and it saved thousands of lives. The teen factory worker, Daniel, whose wrong bolt stopped the line, never knew the chain of events he had started. He was drafted in 1944 and served in the Pacific. Elias Thorne, the composite hero representing the anonymous engineers of the Ordnance Department, received a quiet commendation for meritorious civilian service. He was not celebrated in parades. He was not mentioned in the news. After VE Day, he returned to Toledo and went back to designing automatic transmissions for civilian trucks. His legacy is not a statue. His legacy is the thousands of fathers, brothers and sons who came home, who were able to bail out of a smoking, ruined tank instead of being vaporized inside it. The solution was a testament to the quiet, unglamorous, and life-saving power of paying attention to the small failures. That principle of isolating and protecting volatile components defines modern engineering. The lesson learned in the Detroit Arsenal in 1943 echoes today. Modern main battle tanks, like the M1 Abrams, store their ammunition in compartmentalized bays with blow-off panels, diverting an explosion away from the crew. The concept of wet stowage, using a liquid or inert material to absorb energy and suppress fire, is used in aerospace, nuclear engineering, and disaster-proof construction. The core idea remains: survivability is not just about brute force, it is about intelligent design. The story of the Sherman's wrong bolt is not about a single magic bullet. It is a story of a system learning. It is a reminder that the most profound innovations are often not flashes of isolated genius, but the slow, grinding, courageous work of paying attention. It is the willingness to stop the production line, to question the blueprints, and to defy the consensus of good enough. The great factories that once roared with the sound of war are silent now. The hulls that once moved down the line, waiting for their racks and guns, now sit as monuments in quiet town squares, silent witnesses to the terror they once held, and the simple idea that finally made them safe. Every great idea begins as an act of defiance against impossibility. It is the recognition that acceptable losses are never acceptable, and that the impossible is often just a problem that has not been looked at in the right way. What impossible ideas do you think could change the world?